Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Christy Green, and we're going to go over the fundamentals of the business world. This is going to have a lot of definitions, and we're going to go kind of quick, but it's just to help support the textbook and to help support the PowerPoint, right? Give you a little bit more context or information to kind of enrich in that for you. Also, just remember that these PowerPoints are going to go along with the worksheet, and the worksheet's going to follow. It's just to help you stay awake, to stay connected with the material so you kind of know what you're looking for. Again, a lot of this is going to be definitions, but also identifications, classifications, that sort of thing. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is define the difference between for-profit and nonprofit companies. And a lot of people think, oh, nonprofits aren't really businesses. They are. They're actually run extremely similarly to a for-profit organization. The difference is their goal. Ultimately, a for-profit organization wants to do exactly that. They want to make a profit. They want to have money. They want to have bonuses and grow the company, that sort of thing. A nonprofit, their goal is actually to further a social cause or whatever they kind of have created the nonprofit for. So if we've got a nonprofit homeless shelter, which is pretty common, or a food bank, a church, all these places are nonprofits. They just need enough money to cover their expenses, their salaries, and then to reach the goals that they need to do the things that they want to do, such as providing housing or animal shelters. Think about all those nonprofits that are out there. Speaking of profit, let's kind of learn the definition of that. So in order to know what profit is, we also need to know what revenue and expenses are. And we get a little math equation. I promise we will not do a lot of math in this class, but there are two equations you need to know. This is one of them. The accounting equation later on is the other one, but let's go here. So first of all, let's talk about revenue. Revenue is all of the money that comes into the company. It doesn't matter what the format is or what it looks like. Money comes in, that's revenue, okay? Then from there we have expenses, and these are all the things that go out of the company. These are our costs, these are our bills, these are recurring, our subscriptions, our whatever. These are all our expenses. Once we take how much we brought in minus how much we sent out, whatever is left is our profit. So obviously to maximize profit, we want to have high revenue and low expenses. So here's a little bit of a math equation. It's also in the textbook for you, or a little application, I guess. It says, use Anna's revenue and expenses figures for pets during her first 2 years of an operation to answer the following questions. So we've got year one, revenue and expenses, and year two, revenue and expenses. So we want to know in the first year, did they earn a profit or incur a loss? And so if we kind of look at it, we can look at our revenue and our expenses, and you can see that the expenses in year one were quite a bit more than the revenue. Therefore, a loss was incurred. Okay. Year two, did the expenses increase or decrease? So now we're just looking at just expenses. So the first year was $185,000, the next year $120,000. The expenses went down by quite a bit. All right. And that's typical for a company because we figure out how to do things more efficiently. We realize, oh gosh, we really didn't need two people to cover these shifts. One person could handle it. Or maybe more likely we didn't need four, we only needed two, or something like that. We found a way to do this cheaper, faster, quicker. We found a different manufacturer. Whatever. There's lots of ways to cut costs. Okay. Then it asks, what are the profits in both year one and two? So you just do some quick little math. In year one, we already know it's a loss, so it's going to be a negative number, right? 150,000 minus 185 gives us a negative $35,000. They lost a lot of money, right? We're going to put that on a credit card. We're going to have a loan that we took out for that. That's how we're going to float this. Or we use our own savings, which happens, but it's a little scary, right? And then year number two, we have 180,000 in revenue and only 120 in expenses, which gives us 60,000. That we made 60,000. And then you can always average over the years, and at least we're ahead at this point. So that's kind of how we do a little bit of math with revenue, expenses, and profit. Okay, then we have goods and services, and this is what companies provide. Just know the difference between the two. Goods are very tangible. You can touch them, okay? So that's like clothing, appliances, gas, books, stuff. It's your stuff. And then services are intangible, but they're things that we pay for, such as education, recreation, and healthcare. And you really don't want to mix them up because they do act very differently. A product, if you pay for a product, you expect to get a product. With a service, there's maybe less like direct. Like if you have a gym membership and you pay for a gym membership, are you guaranteed a six-pack? Are you guaranteed absolute health? No, you kind of have to put the work and the effort in to get that, right? So sometimes things are not always just, I paid for it, I get it, right? It's not always so cut and clear. Of course, if you pay for a plumber, I would hope they would fix your pipes. They would. Anyway, moving on. Okay. So something that you need to know as a theme throughout this class, I'm going to talk about it over and over and over again, and it will be on the final, and it's just a base assumption, not even assumption, it's a base fact off of this class that you're going to learn, that business increases the standard of living. The quality of life increases with business. That is what business does, okay? You think about all the things that are businesses and what they provide us, and they make your life better. Okay? And it's not just the stuff that you can have or the things that people can do for you that you pay for money, but also you have work and you get a paycheck with benefits. And then we all pay a portion of that into our taxes. And then we benefit from things like roads and parks and libraries and welfare and a few other things like that when we need them. And then we also donate to our community. And businesses allow for more freedom. Like think about just the amount of choice. Like what if we're in a city and there's only one factory and there's nowhere else to work? That's not a lot of freedom, is it? But if we live in a city where there's tons and tons of different companies, you have the freedom to choose where you want to work. Maybe there's even a freedom to pick hours, to pick pay, to pick challenge, different kinds of opportunities. Okay? So lots of things that are improved with business. So there are 5 factors of production. They're an entrepreneur, natural resources, capital, human resources, and knowledge, and we'll go into those in depth. So first of all, entrepreneurs, that is the person who's like, aha, I'm going to start a business, okay? They're extremely important because we need somebody to start a business. We need somebody to get things going. They take on the risk, and because they take on the risk, they reap the rewards, okay? That's very important. The person who takes the risk gets the reward. Then entrepreneurs will hire employees, and employees will work for a company. They don't take on the risk, but they earn a wage or salary, and that's going to be steady. So what I often see is people who are employees complain because they're just like, the company is doing really, really well, and I didn't get a bonus, or they're doing so well because of my efforts, and I'm not getting any of the money. I'm not seeing it. It's so unfair. Oh, yeah, for sure it's unfair. But then I ask, what about last year when the company was struggling and they weren't making any money? Did you say, oh gosh, this poor company, they better cut my wages. I better take a lower salary so they can go because, gosh, they're on hard times. No way, right? So you just have to remember that if they floated through the risk, they also get the reward. Okay, that's just how that works. Okay, next we have natural resources, and these are the things that we take from nature and we input them and make them useful. So they can't be created. They must be mined, harvested, planted, purified, all those things that we have: land, forests, water, wind, sunlight, and minerals. And we take those things and we put them to use in our business. Then we have capital. Okay, capital is our buildings, machines, tools, technology, anything that we use to help produce our goods and services. The book does not like to use the word capital to include money for some reason, but every other business context and class that I have, we all talk about money as also being capital, so meaning like financial capital, okay? Then we have human resources. This is the human factor. These are the people. Your people are ultimately your prize. They are your advantage. Having really good people is so, so, so important. It's such a big deal. And it's a big deal that they are treated right, that you guys are treated right, that we treat each other right, okay? Because everybody comes in and they bring their intellectual efforts, their skills, all of that sort of thing, and we just cannot take humanity out of the equation when it comes to business. Then the last piece we have is knowledge. It's extremely important that you know about a business that you're going to do. I don't know if any of you guys had to read or have read The Richest Man in Babylon, but there's a chapter about a guy who invests with another gentleman in jewels. Because the guy's like, I know I'm going to make a lot of money off of jewels. But the guy didn't know anything about jewels, and so he loses their money. You don't want to do that. Don't invest with somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. Don't start a company that you don't know anything about. At least do your research, get an education, get trained. Also have a background in business, which you guys are here, so you're already on a step towards that. Okay. A lot of people will work for another company until they develop enough knowledge that they can then start their own company or branch off from. That's pretty common. So let's talk about the forces that affect businesses, because things do. Things come at businesses and they cannot exist, as a little island. It's just not a thing. So some of the things we have are economic forces. So these are the things that come at us, like economic systems. We have to work within the system that we live in. And we don't make that decision. The government makes that decision. So in the US, we have what's called a mixed economy. But it's also capitalism, right? It's mixed because of some regulations and a few things like that. We'll talk about that next module. But you have to work within the system you have, okay? Then there's taxation. We might have to pay in a lot of taxes, or maybe we get some tax breaks and then we are like, okay, I can spend more money doing this. Those things we have to account for. Corruption. That could be corruption within our own company, corruption with another company, corruption in government, but these things affect the economy and then affect a company. Okay. And then the other thing is confidence in the market system. It's insane that one of the most powerful forces in this world is money. One of the things that creates the most amount of power and opportunity, and it's make believe. Okay. We've all just agreed that we have money, that money exists because we agree. A dollar has value because we agree it has value. All right. So it's all this big game that we've all bought into and just said, yeah, this is how this is going to work. This is how we do this. So therefore, it is based on our confidence. So if we're just like, this isn't good, this is bad, we don't have enough money, then guess what? We don't. The economy tanks. And then when people are like, yeah, things are good, I'm stoked, they feel confident, they start spending money, they bankroll it, and guess what? All of a sudden there is money. It's like the ultimate manifestation when it comes to this sort of thing. Okay, then we have technology forces, technological forces. So anything that might advance or change in technology, increase productivity, security, that's a huge thing, right? Your credit card information can't get leaked. We've got e-commerce. Companies like Amazon are putting out all of these like brick and mortar stores out of business, innovation. I remember when Blockbuster was in business and then nobody was renting movies or DVDs. And then Redbox came and now people don't even get Redboxes. I don't even know if people have DVD players in their houses. I've heard of somebody watching a video on their Xbox, which maybe that is true for you guys. I think for the most part we stream, right? Okay, so some of the major things, the book talks about a ton of different technological things that are happening, but I just wanted to hit on a couple for you. So one is AI. It's huge. It's big right now. Be careful with AI. You guys can use AI strategically, like in your classes, in your work, but just be careful that it doesn't replace you. It does not replace your brain. It does not write a paper for you. Okay, first of all, it's just not advanced enough. And then second of all, do not allow yourself to ever be replaced by a robot, right? Okay, but definitely leverage it. Let it do the easy work. Okay, then we have machine learning, and this is AI, but it evolves based on a mass amount of data. Every industry uses machine learning. This college uses machine learning. Okay, then we've got cloud computing, resources over the internet. I think you guys are pretty familiar with that, at least in the terms of like Google Docs and Google presentations. Gosh, I wish when I was in college that we had things like that, because we all had to meet up at the library. I went to the U, and we all had to meet at the library up there and like huddle around a computer. And then we had so many pictures that it like crashed the computer. Like seriously, it was just like a disaster. So anyway, you guys have it easy in that respect. Then we have augmented and virtual reality. so fun, right? Like we've got the VR. You guys can go into another world, go into the metaverse for a little while. I've got my 65-year-old father-in-law who loves his VR so much that he is in there for hours playing golf with his buddies. And his one buddy, he has an issue with his leg. He can't go golfing anymore, but he can still play. And they have a blast. And they're like seriously in the metaverse for hours. Okay. Anyway, and then we've got big data and analytics, and that's where we're just going through a vast amount of data and digging through it. But the idea is to get some insights and to help drive decisions. Okay, then we have competitive forces, and these are these rival businesses that we have, and we have to compete for our customers. And then just remember that a company needs to have what's called a competitive advantage, that nobody can do it quite as well as them. So, like, for example, what would you say Chick-fil-A's advantage is? Yes, their drive-through. They get people through very, very quickly. They realized early on that the bottleneck in getting people through quickly was not actually in making the food, it was in the ordering, and they set up the multiple ordering stations, right? So, competitive advantages. Then we have social forces. So this is when we have like a change in demographic or a change in values or beliefs. So demographics are things that are highly, highly quantifiable. Like I can look around the room and I can pretty much, I get like 90% close on age, gender, socioeconomic status, marital status, things like that. We're not going to nobody is a complete stereotype, so we're not going to get it 100% correct, but we're going to get pretty close. These are things that we can just quantify about a person and put them in a nice little box. What happens when we have that huge generation of baby boomers retiring and needing nurses and needing Social Security? We have a huge shift coming up on our hands, right? Because we've got a generation that's much bigger than the following generations that are going to need a lot of care. So we'll see a huge rise in like pharmaceuticals, in nursing, those sorts of things, right? Okay, then what about a change in values or beliefs? Like when we see something come out about like meat causes cancer and people buy in on that, we see their prices tank. Okay. Or, the younger generation values things differently than older generations. Okay. So, like the baby boomers, they really wanted job security. That was a really big deal. And then, like, I'm a millennial and we really need to sleep in. That's a really big deal. So, that's going to change how businesses function. If they want a millennial, like, we're not starting work at 6 a.m. Okay, again, stereotyping, but that's the idea. Then we have global forces. These are things that are happening all around the world that are going to affect a business here, and well, really anywhere because we're so interconnected. We've got trade agreements. So there are some countries that we trade really fluently with, like Mexico and Canada. The US trades with very, very, like a ton. And it's very easy because we're so close, right? And I know you think, oh, we trade the most with China. That's actually not true. It's Canada and Mexico that we trade the most with. Then we've got military alliances. Like, if there was a war between Russia, well, there is a war between Russia and Ukraine. But if we were asked to pick sides, which side are we going to be on? And we've got those alliances. Then we have currency exchange. So a US dollar is not the same as a yen, as a peso, as a dinar. They're just like not the same. They've got an exchange rate. They've got this relative value, and that's going to affect things. So for example, my family's from Argentina, and when I was younger, we would go to Argentina and the exchange rate was 1 to 15, which is cool because they got really good steak dinners there. So we would go and we could get a really nice steak dinner for like $5 to $10. Nice, right? Now the exchange rate is 1 to 200. So now I'm a freaking queen of Argentina. No, just kidding. But my money would go a lot further down there now, which is not great actually for their economy. Then we have immigration policies. That's obviously coming up a ton right now. How well people can work. In Europe, you can live in Germany and work in France, and it's absolutely no issue. You don't actually have to have a different kind of work visa. So some countries have a little bit more flexibility with that than others do. There's environmental regulations, and then we have differences in regulations. So like here in the US, we're really big on intellectual property. That is not the case in China. So that's why you can find so much bootleg stuff in other countries. And those bootleg things can put you out of business, right? So they're big forces. Okay, then we have like our political, regulatory, and legal. And I get that a lot of these might feel like they overlap, especially the economic one, the global one. Totally get it. It's okay if you can't figure out a perfect little classification for everything. Just do your best, okay? No one's gonna, I mean, other than a test, right? No one's gonna be like, that sounded more like an environmental or, a force rather than a regulatory. It's like, it's fine. Okay, so we've got regulations, and because we have such a complicated government system, which is awesome in a lot of ways, we have stacks and stacks and levels of regulations you have to meet. You have to meet city, county, state, federal, and then international regulations. As simple as like you open up a business, your business license is in the city that your business is running in, but then you're going to register your paperwork at a state level, and then you're going to also still have to notify the federal government of who owns the company, and then you're going to pay taxes on that company both at county, state, and federal levels. Does that kind of make sense? Like, it gets a little bit crazy with all of that. And then, of course, politics make a big difference. Even something as simple as whether Republicans take the House or Senate or Democrats take the House. It's not a right or wrong. It just is a little bit of a shift of approach. Okay? All right, the last thing to learn about in terms of like basic information for business is stakeholders. Okay, a stakeholder is anybody who has a vested interest in the business, and that just means anybody who's like, this business is important to me. Okay, so that can be the owners and the shareholders, and I do want to point out that all shareholders are stakeholders, but not all stakeholders are shareholders. A shareholder is somebody who owns a portion of a corporation. Okay, they own stocks and bonds in a corporation, or they're an owner of a corporation. Okay, they're a shareholder, and they are a stakeholder because they have a vested interest, right? They want some profit. But you don't have to be a shareholder to have an interest in the company. Does that make sense? Okay, customers care about companies, the employees do, the suppliers, because that's a business-to-business relationship, the distributors, lenders, banks, they care if that business goes under, they want their money back, right? The community, there are lots of businesses that are very important to our community, to our freedoms, and then these things are important to the government, and not just taxes, but in terms, again, of freedom, of what businesses can give us, the kind of lifestyle that we can have, and the opportunities and society that we are building. So that is a really quick recap or lecture of the fundamentals of business.